Welcome to More Patience, More Impact, More Income, the podcast for real holistic medical practitioners who want to grow their high-impact, high-income practice without selling out. And now, here's your host, Chris Axelrad.
So you can get all these patients coming into your door, right? You can get your message together, get your mindset together around who you're going to be helping, the problems you're going to be solving, get a really killer system as far as advertising, getting these patients coming to you on autopilot so that you don't have to sit there and go out and market and chase and do networking meetings and go do tons and tons of talks. Although I do think doing talks is amazing. We don't necessarily need to be doing talks every single week or whenever anybody asks us to do one. We need to be more selective about when we're doing talks, where and to whom, if we want to really get maximum impact. That's a whole other topic. But the key is this: you can get all of this working, but if the people who are coming to you are walking into a shitstorm, in other words, like you don't have a clear process in your office, you don't have a set way of showing up, of having that presence in your clinic that is going to also be very appealing and attractive. And I'm not saying physically attractive. I'm saying attractive on a mind and spirit level, where people come into your environment and they meet with you in person and you just have that resonance about you. You have that focus and that ability to be present and listen. And you know what? You can't fake that. People know when they walk into a business establishment, I don't care what kind it is, but in particular, when they walk into a clinic, when they walk into a place where they are seeking to receive medicine. And when I say medicine, I don't just mean drugs, herbs, and other things like the tools. I mean the medicine of the situation, the medicine of the moment. Like to feel that hope, to feel that optimism, to feel like they're being heard, and to feel like they have actually found something that's going to be truly, truly helpful to them. They can sense that within seconds in terms of how they're greeted, in terms of how they are spoken to, in terms of how they are allowed to speak and the things that they are allowed to say versus getting cut off versus feeling like they're in a rush. I mean, so many different facets to this. And you can break it down and you can analyze it and you can try to list out and bullet point out all the mechanics of this whole thing. And trust me, I could do that for you. But you don't need to do that, because it really just boils down to something I call stealth shamanic presence. Now, the reason I'm talking about shamanic and shamanism is because holistic medicine is, whether we like it or not, and it's not that I don't like it, but some people don't like to talk about shaman and these types of concepts because it's too quote unquote woo-woo or whatever. But here's the thing, man, if you're going to truly function as a holistic healer, as a holistic practitioner, we talked about this before, but holistic means everything, the whole. Thoughts, emotions, yes, diet, yes, lifestyle, which is where most people are laser focused and overly focused on diet and lifestyle, because that just feeds into this concept that the body is everything and that the chemicals are everything. When there's this whole layer above the chemical layer, we can call it the functional layer, we can call it the mind, we can call it the subconscious mind, we can call it whatever we want, but it's an invisible layer where all of the decisions are happening, like what to make, what not to make. You know, why are we making more of this chemical versus less of this chemical? Those decisions are not being guided entirely by lifestyle and diet. There's emotional factors, there's thought habits, there's attitudes, relationships, not just with ourselves, but with other people. There's our careers. All of these things make a whole picture that then becomes distilled into the body as a state of health or a state of not health. What we practice as holistic medical practitioners is a form of shamanism. And why is that? Well, yes, we use the tools, we use our instruments, if you will. If you're an acupuncturist, that would be needles. If you're an herbalist, it would be herbs. If you're a chiropractor, it would be your hands and the adjustments or whatever tools you're using. If you're a naturopath, it's the natural substances and processes that you use in your practice. We use those, but there's so much more to the interaction. There's so much more medicine being delivered simply by, number one, the way that we are present with our patients, which is a resonant state or an incongruent and non-resonant state. And that's what I'm talking about when I say people can walk into a situation, they can walk into any room and immediately get a sense for what kind of a quote unquote vibe is going down in that room. And you can't fake. It's like if somebody walks into a room where there was just a really bad argument between two people, and the two people are trying to pretend like everything's okay, right? They're trying to fake like everything's okay. But the person who just walked in, unless they are completely shut down to their own feelings and they're completely oblivious to their environment, they're going to be like, the hell just went down in here? Something ain't right. There's definitely like something off. If this horde of patients that you're starting to attract because you've got your shit together with your marketing comes into your presence, into your space, and feels this kind of energy of, rush and uncertainty and lack of centeredness and this honestly just lack of caring, because the bottom line is caring about other people, truly caring about other people is not feeling sorry for them. Okay. It's not like just saying, yeah, I feel you. Yeah, I understand. No, it's actually stepping outside of yourself in terms of stop thinking about yourself, stop making it about you, and really just become transparent and clear to be able to hear and see what's going on with this other person. No judgment, no fear, no guilt, no shame, no anger, nothing. Just clear, calm, centered, and completely present. That is stealth shamanic presence. And what happens when you're in that state is that you become the anchor for the entire energy of the interaction. And that interaction becomes anchored in that state of centeredness and calm that you are intentionally holding. Now, in physics, there is a phenomenon called entrainment. And entrainment is where if you take two pendulums and you put them next to each other, okay, the one that has more momentum, okay, will actually pull the other one into sync with it, right? So they can be going in completely different directions, but whichever pendulum has more momentum, the second pendulum will start to sync up with it and start going in the same direction and the same speed. This is a phenomenon that was noticed very early on in physics experiments. You could say that it has to do, in my opinion, that it has to do with gravity, and it has to do with force, and it has to do with momentum. And the fact is that your job in clinic is to always be the one generating the state and generating the frame. People who burn out in their practice, people who aren't able to truly be successful in their practice, people who say their patients drain them or that they get overwhelmed when their schedule is too busy, are simply blaming their own lack of ability to generate a state of calm and centeredness on external circumstances. They're making excuses for why they are not able to stay in that calm, centered presence so that they can help the people who are coming to them. So the whole point of me talking about this is the fact that this is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak. And this is where a lot of people fail. You can create a message. You can go and copy someone's message, for crying out loud, and just paraphrase it and set your marketing up in a very mechanical way to trick people into coming to see you in your office. And when I say trick, I mean because if that message isn't really your message, and it's not really your heart, and it's not really your purpose and your mission, and you're just trying to manipulate people to get them to come into your office so you can have more patients, and you haven't really thought through and really grounded and centered yourself in the right kind of mindset, then you're attracting them to something that's false. And I'm not saying that you have to be perfect. I'm not saying that you have to have it all together before people come in to see come into your office to see you and spend time with you, work with you. But what I am saying is that your biggest limiting factor in your growth, not only in the number of patients that you're helping, but the amount of impact that you're having, and yes, the amount of income that you can generate. The biggest limiting factor is how you are present in clinic, how you show up when that person shows up in your office, how you meet them, how you greet them, how you are present, and how you are accounted for or not. Because people have a built-in bullshit meter, and they can tell when you're just going through the motions, and they can tell when you're not really listening to them, and they can tell when you're just trying to get through the process and there's not any heart behind it whatsoever. And as holistic healers, we can't operate that way and expect to be successful, because holistic means everything. Holistic means we have to be tuned into the whole person. Whereas in conventional medicine, it's very mechanical. I could really not give a shit about any of the people that I see. But if I'm good at interpreting labs and I'm good at interpreting studies, I don't have to even talk to them, and I can just medicate them. And that's considered successful in conventional medicine. In conventional medicine, success means what? It doesn't mean, free of intervention. Actually, success in conventional medicine is to choose and implement the right intervention to control the symptoms or to alleviate the symptoms. But there is not an end goal of strengthening the person's body, of strengthening their relationship with their own life and their own power, to allow them to be self-empowered. That is not part of the conventional medical ethos. And there's nothing wrong with that. I am not here to in any way denigrate Western medicine. Why? Because if I haven't said it before, I'll say it here. Without vaccines and antibiotics, you and I probably would not be having this conversation right now. You would not be listening to this. And there's a good chance that the technology that was invented for us to be able to have this situation where you're listening to a recording of me on some device, probably over the internet, there's a good chance that the people who came together to invent and create these technologies would have been dead before they ever got a chance to do it without vaccines and antibiotics. And also, look, if I had a severe form of cancer, I would get surgery, I would get radiation, I would take chemo. Don't think that for a minute I'm going to hesitate to use all of the tools at my disposal to help myself get that cancer out of my body. I'm not one of these people who is militant about natural medicine. I believe that we use all tools for the purpose that they are best suited. Surgery is really well suited to correct, for instance, a blocked artery in the heart that is going to cause a heart attack imminently, or may have already caused a small infarction in the cardiac tissue. Surgery is absolutely appropriate, and, conventional medical techniques are absolutely called for. So I'm not here to denigrate conventional medicine. But what I am here to say is that as holistic medical providers, our job is to go beyond that. Our job is not to try to mimic that and not to try to play doctor and just be allopathic with supplements and think that because we're prescribing supplements, that makes us holistic. When we're not actually talking to our patients, we're not actually asking them about their lives and trying to help coach them on their mindset and trying to help cultivate in them a sense of their own power. And we're not caring about them on a deeper level than just, let me help you feel better so I can feel better about myself. And oh, by the way, you're going to pay me and I'm going to feel better about myself because I'm making more money. No, that's not what this is about.
If you're ready to fill your practice and keep it full without the stress and overwhelm, then get instant access to your free Autopilot Patient Attraction Playbook now at www.highimpactpracticesystems.com/autopilot.
See, a shamanic presence and focus implies that you care about your community, that you are, in a way, the steward of your community's spiritual, mental, and emotional clarity and health and power. When people come to you, and they come to you because they're suffering, and they come to you because they're in pain, and they come to you because in some way their life is out of alignment with nature. Because if your life is in alignment with nature, then guess what? You don't need to go to the doctor, right? But if your life is out of line with nature, you're going to seek help. And when we show up with that shamanic presence, willing to look at, listen to, contemplate, honor, and respect everything about that person and everything about what's going on, and not just exclude all this other stuff and just try to look at just the chemicals and push the little molecules around and arrange the molecules so they look pretty. For instance, like when women who aren't cycling or have problems with their cycle are just put on birth control, and now they have a monthly period. I mean, congratulations, you've just rearranged the molecules so everything looks pretty, but you haven't actually fixed the real problem that was causing these irregularities in the cycle, which could potentially be serious problems down the road. We're not just doing that with holistic medicine. We don't deserve or we don't earn the right to call ourselves holistic if that's all we are doing is just practicing allopathic medicine with supplements and food, running tests, looking at numbers, and just pushing the molecules around and not talking about how people are feeling, not talking about helping them to change their perspectives and their attitudes on themselves and their lives and their power. And yes, using our tools as well, not becoming just psychotherapists in terms of like abandoning the herbs and abandoning the supplements and the needles and whatever other tools we use. I'm not saying that. We actually focus on being holistic and understanding that life itself is the medicine. So you've got to be able to show up that way with an open heart, a clear mind, being present. And that's why these autopilot marketing systems are so important. That's why I teach that. But the fundamentals of what I teach, people who join my program, my coaching, my mentorship program, the first thing is mindset. There is a hardcore mindset module where it's not like we're going to make you go crazy and brainwash you and break you down or something. It's actually a very enlightening and very uplifting process that people go through. And they come out on the other side of that process so clear and so fired up and so inspired to really, really build the practice that they want to build. Or if they're already fairly successful in their practice and they're just wanting to shift their practice and realign their practice or build systems that are going to help them scale their practice and grow their practice, they come out of that mindset module really clear and ready and inspired to do it. That's why the mindset comes first. Because if you set up this autopilot attraction system and it starts to work, then it will work as long as you are willing to give it a little time. Sometimes people hit like right away. I mean, I've seen people who like, they come in and they put this thing together and it's like, boom. I mean, immediately they're getting 5 new patients the first week, 10 new patients the next week, 15 new patients in a month later per week. And they're just like, holy cow. And then I've actually had a couple of people tell me, I'm really glad you helped me with the mindset first because I would not be able to handle this as my former self with the way that I was thinking before. I would have not been able to handle it. And that's actually a ceiling a lot of people hit. Like I said, this is the hardest ceiling there is your own way that you're showing up at your clinic. It's the one limiting factor that will have the biggest impact on keeping you from the success that you want. So make sure that you focus on learning how to be present and accounted for in your clinic, calm, focused, clear. And if you have a team, make sure that your team is clear on what their job is and what your expectations are of them. One of the problems I see a lot, and I'm not going to get too deep into this right now because really this deserves a whole episode. But one of the problems I see with a lot of people in their practice is that they don't have clarity around not only their expectations of themselves, like what I'm talking about in terms of this stealth shamanic presence and showing up and being that light to the people who are coming into your clinic, and essentially just making sure that you have your shit together so when they show up, they don't get an experience that essentially repels them, because that's a very repelling thing, to feel like you're not being listened to feel like you're not being, that people aren't really paying attention to you and they don't really care. After all the trouble you went through to connect with them, to show up at their place, and then it's just like a total disaster, right? They just feel like, wow, what a waste of time. So you don't want to be that. But the other thing you don't want to be is, if you have a team, is to not have clear expectations of what your team is expected to do and not communicate those expectations to them. Because let me tell you something, man, most people want to do a good job. They really do. But they can't do a good job if they don't know what their fucking job is. They can't do a good job if there's no clear guidelines of what a good job means. And I've made this mistake, and it took me a while to learn it, but I never will make it again. All the employees who come in here. So this is a good example of why this stealth shamanic presence is not just for your patients. It's for your team as well, and also for you. But in terms of your team, you are being clear with them. You care about them. You want to help them succeed. You are, in a sense, a healer for them in terms of setting goals and empowering them to be really, really badass at what they do. You can't do that if you're not clear. So this is all about like really locking in and being present and clear in your space, in your clinic. And the autopilot attraction, again, allows you the mind energy, the mind focus, the time, the space to not be worrying about your marketing and all this crap while you're in clinic and while you're in the room with your patients. To not have that on your mind and to not be worrying about your bills and your rent and all that other stuff. Because once you get this thing rolling, you've got patients coming all the time. All the time. So then you can stop worrying about all other stuff. And you need to be able to sit down and start focusing on the people in front of you and changing their fucking lives with this amazing, powerful beautiful, profound medicine we call holistic medicine. And so let me just say that if you don't have any type of daily practice and daily mindset rituals around staying calm, staying focused, and really just cultivating a state of inspiration within yourself that you can then generate and hold as people are coming into your space. If you don't have rituals around that, you need them. And you need to start investing that time in yourself, which ends up being time invested in your practice and in your patients and in your life. And in my program, we've got proven processes and rituals that work, that have worked over and over and have changed countless people's lives. Not just the practitioners who've come through my program, but the patients that have come in contact with them. And I've even had messages sent to me from the spouses of some of my clients, literally telling me, thank you, your program has changed our family. Your program has brought our family back together and has created so much love and so much focus in our family. And I never would have thought that when my spouse joined your program that would be anything. Never even considered that possibility. But whether you join my program or not, you need to get some systems together and some rituals together to cultivate, sustain, and maintain your commitment to have that stealth shamanic presence.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.